Question 1. The risk matrix shows a high potential for user engagement through personalized content delivery based on observed website behavior. However, it also highlights a moderate risk of privacy concerns if this behavioral data is not handled with strict adherence to data protection principles. Which approach to behavioral targeting best mitigates these risks while maximizing legitimate user engagement? Option A. Employing behavioral targeting by inferring user interests from their browsing history without informing users about the specific data points being used for targeting. Option B. Implementing behavioral targeting based on explicit user consent for specific data categories, with clear opt-out mechanisms and transparent communication about how data is used for personalization. Option C. Focusing solely on demographic targeting and avoiding any form of behavioral targeting to completely eliminate privacy risks. Option D. Utilizing broad behavioral segmentation based on aggregated, anonymized user data without explicit individual consent, assuming this data is no longer personal. Correct answer is B. Implementing behavioral targeting based on explicit user consent for specific data categories, with clear opt-out mechanisms and transparent communication about how data is used for personalization. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the desire to personalize user experiences through behavioral targeting with the imperative to comply with data privacy regulations, specifically those relevant to the Google Analytics individual qualification exam's jurisdiction. The core tension lies in how user data is collected, analyzed, and utilized for targeting without infringing upon user rights or exceeding permissible data processing activities. Careful judgment is required to ensure that targeting strategies are both effective and ethical, adhering strictly to the defined regulatory framework. The correct approach involves implementing behavioral targeting strategies that are transparent to users and allow for granular control over data usage for personalization. This means ensuring that any data used for targeting is collected with appropriate consent, is anonymized or pseudonymized where possible, and that users can opt out of such targeting. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are fundamental to many data privacy regulations. Specifically, it upholds the user's right to privacy and control over their personal data, preventing intrusive or unexpected targeting. An incorrect approach that relies on broad, non-consensual data collection for behavioral targeting fails to respect user privacy. This could involve using sensitive behavioral data without explicit consent, or segmenting users into categories that could be discriminatory or lead to unfair treatment, thereby violating principles of fairness and transparency. Another incorrect approach might involve using aggregated, anonymized data for targeting, but doing so in a way that still feels overly intrusive or is based on assumptions that are not clearly communicated to the user. While anonymized data is generally less regulated, the perception of intrusion and lack of transparency can still lead to ethical breaches and potential regulatory scrutiny if the anonymization process is not robust or if the targeting is based on inferences that are not permissible. A further incorrect approach could be to ignore the behavioral data altogether, thus missing opportunities for relevant personalization. While this avoids privacy risks, it is professionally suboptimal as it fails to leverage the platform's capabilities for user engagement and can lead to a less effective user experience, potentially impacting business objectives without a clear regulatory justification for this inaction. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory framework, a clear assessment of the data being used and its sensitivity, and a commitment to transparency and user control. This includes conducting privacy impact assessments for new targeting strategies, ensuring consent mechanisms are robust and user-friendly, and regularly reviewing data processing activities against regulatory requirements and ethical best practices. Question 2. The performance metrics show a significant drop in conversion rates for a specific user segment after a recent website update. To investigate further, the marketing team proposes creating a custom dimension to track the exact sequence of product pages viewed by users within a single session, and a custom metric to count the number of times a user adds an item to their cart before abandoning the session. What is the most appropriate action to take regarding these proposed custom tracking elements, considering the need for granular insights and adherence to data privacy principles? Option A. Implement the custom dimension and custom metric as proposed, as they are essential for understanding user behavior and identifying conversion bottlenecks. Option B. Implement the custom dimension and custom metric, but ensure that no direct personally identifiable information, PI, is explicitly entered into these fields. Option C. Implement the custom dimension and custom metric, and rely on the website's existing privacy policy to cover any potential data collection. Option D. Review the proposed custom dimension and custom metric to determine if they could inadvertently collect or infer PII, and if so, modify or avoid their implementation until compliance is confirmed. The correct answer is A. Implement the custom dimension and custom metric as proposed, as they are essential for understanding user behavior and identifying conversion bottlenecks. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a deep understanding of how custom metrics and dimensions in Google Analytics can impact data privacy and compliance, particularly concerning the collection and use of personally identifiable information, PI. The challenge lies in balancing the need for granular performance insights with the strict regulatory requirements for data handling. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the implementation of custom tracking does not inadvertently lead to noncompliance. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the proposed custom metrics and dimensions to identify any that could potentially collect or infer PII. This includes understanding the nature of the data being tracked and how it might be combined with other information to identify individuals. The regulatory justification for this approach stems from the fundamental principles of data privacy regulations, which prohibit the collection of PII without explicit consent or a legitimate legal basis. Implementing custom tracking without this due diligence risks violating these regulations, leading to significant penalties and reputational damage. An incorrect approach would be to implement custom metrics and dimensions without considering their PII implications. This demonstrates a failure to adhere to the principle of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are core tenets of data privacy. Specifically, tracking user behavior in a way that could identify individuals, even if not explicitly intended, is a direct violation of privacy principles. Another incorrect approach is to assume that if PII is not directly entered into a field, it is not being collected. This overlooks the possibility of inferring PII through combinations of data points or through the use of specific tracking parameters. This oversight represents a significant regulatory failure, as the intent of data privacy laws is to protect individuals from unauthorized tracking and profiling. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a proactive risk assessment. Before implementing any new tracking or data collection mechanism, a comprehensive review should be conducted by individuals knowledgeable in both Google Analytics and relevant data privacy regulations. This review should specifically assess the potential for PII collection, the necessity of the data being collected, and the existence of appropriate consent mechanisms. If there is any doubt about whether a custom metric or dimension could lead to PII collection, it should be avoided or modified until compliance can be assured. Question 3. When evaluating the creation of custom reports in Google Analytics to understand user behavior and campaign effectiveness, which of the following approaches best aligns with privacy, best practices, and regulatory compliance for user data? Option A. Building reports that infer user interests and demographic profiles based on their browsing history, and then reporting on these inferred characteristics without a clear opt-in for profiling. Option B. Developing reports that meticulously track individual user sessions, including specific page views, time spent on each page, and clickstream data, without explicit user consent for such granular tracking. Option C. Generating reports that include raw, unaggregated user interaction data, such as IP addresses and unique user ID, and sharing this with external marketing partners for their custom analysis. Option D. Creating reports that aggregate user data to show overall trends in website traffic, engagement metrics, and conversion rates, ensuring no individual user can be identified. The correct answer is D. Creating reports that aggregate user data to show overall trends in website traffic, engagement metrics, and conversion rates, ensuring no individual user can be identified. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for actionable insights with the ethical and regulatory obligations surrounding data privacy and user consent. The core challenge lies in creating custom reports that provide value without inadvertently violating privacy principles or regulatory requirements, particularly concerning the use of personally identifiable information, PI, or data that could be used to infer PII. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the data collected and reported is anonymized or aggregated appropriately, and that any reporting that might touch upon sensitive user behaviors is handled with extreme caution and in line with established consent frameworks. The correct approach involves creating custom reports that focus on aggregated, anonymized data. This approach is ethically sound and compliant because it prioritizes user privacy by removing or obscuring any information that could directly or indirectly identify an individual. By reporting on trends, overall user engagement metrics, and campaign performance without delving into individual user journeys or specific actions that could be traced back, the organization adheres to the principle of data minimization and purpose limitation. This aligns with the spirit of regulations that emphasize responsible data handling and the protection of individual privacy, ensuring that insights are gained without compromising user trust or legal standing. An incorrect approach that involves creating custom reports to track individual user journeys and specific page interactions without explicit consent for such detailed tracking is ethically problematic and potentially violates privacy regulations. This method risks collecting and reporting on data that could be considered PII or sensitive behavioral data, which may require a higher level of consent or specific legal basis for processing. Another incorrect approach that focuses on reporting on user demographics and interests derived from inferred data without clear opt-in mechanisms for such profiling is also a failure. This can lead to privacy concerns and potential violations if users are not aware of or have not consented to this type of data inference and reporting. A third incorrect approach that involves sharing raw, unaggregated user interaction data with third parties for custom reporting purposes, without anonymization or explicit consent, represents a significant breach of privacy and regulatory compliance. This exposes sensitive user information and can lead to severe legal and reputational consequences. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific regulatory landscape governing data collection and reporting. This involves identifying what constitutes PII, understanding consent requirements, and adhering to principles of data minimization and purpose limitation. Before creating any custom report, professionals should ask, what is the business objective of this report? And does this report require the use of individual user data? If individual data is necessary, they must then assess the legal basis for its collection and processing, ensuring appropriate consent mechanisms are in place. The default should always be to anonymize and aggregate data to protect user privacy, only deviating from this when there is a clear, legally defensible need and robust safeguards are implemented. Question 4. Stakeholder feedback indicates that while UTM parameters are crucial for measuring the effectiveness of various marketing initiatives, there's a concern that some campaign names might inadvertently include user-identifiable information within the source, medium, campaign, content, or term fields. What is the most responsible and compliant approach to address this feedback? Option A. Implement a strict policy that prohibits the inclusion of any personal or sensitive information in UTM parameters, and conduct regular audits to ensure compliance, focusing on descriptive and non-identifying campaign details. Option B. Advise marketing teams to use their best judgment when creating UTM parameters, as the primary goal is campaign tracking, and the risk of collecting PII is minimal. Option C. Rely on Google Analytics' built-in PII detection features to flag and remove any inadvertently collected personal information after the data has been processed. Option D. Immediately remove all UTM parameters from current and future campaigns to eliminate any potential risk of PII collection, even if it means losing valuable performance insights. The correct answer is A. Implement a strict policy that prohibits the inclusion of any personal or sensitive information in UTM parameters, and conduct regular audits to ensure compliance, focusing on descriptive and non-identifying campaign details. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the desire for granular marketing performance data with the ethical imperative of user privacy and transparency, all within the specific regulatory framework governing data collection and use for digital analytics. The core tension lies in how UTM parameters, while essential for tracking campaign effectiveness, can inadvertently collect or infer personally identifiable information, PI, if not managed carefully. The Google Analytics Individual Qualification exam emphasizes responsible data handling, and this question probes the understanding of how to apply UTM parameters ethically and compliantly. The correct approach involves a proactive and transparent method of managing UTM parameters to prevent the collection of PII. This means establishing clear guidelines for campaign naming conventions that explicitly prohibit the inclusion of sensitive user data within the source, medium, campaign, content, or term parameters. Furthermore, it necessitates regular audits of incoming data to identify and rectify any instances where PII might have been inadvertently captured. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are fundamental to many data privacy regulations. By focusing on descriptive, non-identifying campaign information, the organization upholds user trust and avoids potential regulatory violations. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the potential for PII in UTM parameters, assuming that UTMs are purely for campaign tracking and not user identification. This oversight can lead to the accidental collection of sensitive data, which could then be processed or stored in violation of privacy laws. Another incorrect approach is to implement UTM parameters without any clear naming conventions or oversight, leading to inconsistent and potentially problematic data. This lack of structure increases the risk of accidental PII inclusion and makes it difficult to audit and correct data issues. Finally, a flawed approach would be to only address PII concerns reactively, after a breach or regulatory inquiry, rather than proactively implementing preventative measures. This reactive stance demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to prioritize user privacy from the outset. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes ethical data collection and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Understanding the potential risks associated with data collection tools, including how seemingly innocuous parameters like UTMs can be misused or misconfigured. 2. Establishing clear, documented policies and procedures for data collection and parameter usage. 3. Implementing training for all relevant personnel on these policies. 4. Conducting regular audits and reviews of data to ensure ongoing compliance. 5. Fostering a culture of data privacy, awareness, and accountability within the organization. Question 5. Analysis of a scenario where a marketing team has recently implemented a new Google Analytics tracking code across their company's e-commerce website. They have received confirmation from the development team that the code snippet has been deployed to all pages. However, upon reviewing the initial data in Google Analytics, the marketing manager notices a significant drop in session data compared to historical averages, and some key conversion events appear to be missing. The marketing manager needs to determine the most appropriate next step to ensure the accuracy and reliability of their website's analytics. Option A. Conduct a thorough technical audit of the tracking code implementation across various pages and devices, utilizing browser developer tools to verify the code's firing and data transmission, and cross-reference event tracking with expected user interactions. Option B. Immediately assume the historical data was inaccurate and proceed with analyzing the new lower session data, as the new code is confirmed as deployed. Option C. Focus solely on adjusting marketing campaign spend based on the new lower session data, assuming it reflects a genuine decline in website traffic. Option D. Instruct the development team to revert to the previous tracking code immediately, as the new data indicates a problem with the current implementation. Correct answer is B. Immediately assume the historical data was inaccurate and proceed with analyzing the new lower session data, as the new code is confirmed as deployed. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a deep understanding of how Google Analytics tracking code implementation directly impacts data integrity, and by extension, compliance with data privacy principles. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that the tracking code is not only technically functional, but also implemented in a way that respects user privacy and adheres to the terms of service of the platform being used. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for comprehensive data collection with the ethical and regulatory obligations concerning user consent and data handling. The correct approach involves a systematic verification process that confirms the tracking code is firing correctly on all intended pages and that the data being collected is accurate and relevant. This includes checking for proper installation, ensuring no duplicate tags are present, and verifying that the data appears as expected in the Google Analytics interface. This approach is right because it directly addresses the foundational requirement of accurate data collection, which is essential for any subsequent analysis or decision-making. Furthermore, it aligns with the principles of responsible data stewardship, ensuring that the data used is reliable and that the implementation does not inadvertently lead to privacy breaches or violations of Google Analytics terms of service. An incorrect approach of assuming the tracking code is working simply because it was installed without verification fails to acknowledge the potential for technical errors or misconfigurations. This can lead to incomplete or inaccurate data, rendering all subsequent analysis unreliable and potentially leading to flawed business decisions. Ethically, it represents a lack of due diligence in managing a critical data collection mechanism. Another incorrect approach of relying solely on the Google Analytics interface to confirm implementation without cross-referencing with actual website behavior, e.g., using browser developer tools, is also problematic. While the interface shows data, it doesn't always reveal underlying implementation issues that might be causing data discrepancies or performance problems. This can mask critical errors that need to be addressed. A third incorrect approach of prioritizing speed of implementation over thorough verification can lead to the deployment of a faulty tracking code. This haste can result in data loss, incorrect attribution, or even the collection of unintended data, all of which undermine the purpose of using Google Analytics and can have significant compliance implications if user consent mechanisms are not properly integrated with the data collection process. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that emphasizes a phased approach to tracking code implementation, planning, implementation, and rigorous verification. This framework should include technical checks, data validation, and a review against privacy policies and platform terms of service. The emphasis should always be on ensuring data accuracy and compliance before relying on the collected data for any purpose. Question 6. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a paid search campaign is generating a high volume of clicks at a low cost per click, but the conversion rate remains significantly below industry benchmarks. Which approach best utilizes Google Analytics data to inform strategic adjustments for this campaign? Option A. Focus on optimizing ad copy and landing page experience to improve conversion rates, while monitoring the cost per acquisition, CPA, to ensure it remains within acceptable limits. Option B. Prioritize reducing the cost per click, CPC, further by aggressively bidding down, even if it means sacrificing some of the lower-cost traffic. Option C. Increase the budget for the campaign to capture more of the low-cost clicks, assuming that volume will eventually lead to a higher number of conversions. Option D. Rely on the low cost per click as the primary indicator of success and maintain the current bidding strategy. The correct answer is A. Focus on optimizing ad copy and landing page experience to improve conversion rates, while monitoring the cost per acquisition, CPA, to ensure it remains within acceptable limits. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a marketer to interpret paid search performance data through the lens of Google Analytics individual qualification, GAIQ, principles, specifically focusing on the ethical and regulatory implications of data interpretation and reporting. The challenge lies in moving beyond simple performance metrics to understand how these metrics inform strategic decisions in a way that aligns with best practices and avoids misleading stakeholders. The GAIQ exam emphasizes understanding how to use Google Analytics effectively and responsibly, which includes the ethical use of data and adherence to privacy principles, even in a paid search context. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a nuanced understanding of how paid search campaigns contribute to overall business objectives, as measured by Google Analytics. It requires recognizing that while cost is a direct input, the benefit is not solely derived from immediate conversions, but also from factors like brand awareness, lead generation, and customer lifetime value, all of which can be tracked and analyzed within Google Analytics. This approach aligns with GAIQ principles by advocating for a holistic view of campaign performance, using GA data to inform strategic adjustments that optimize for long-term value and ROI, rather than just short-term cost efficiency. It emphasizes using GA to understand user behavior and campaign impact beyond simple click-through rates, thereby ensuring that paid search investments are strategically aligned with business goals and that reporting is transparent and actionable. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that solely focuses on minimizing cost per conversion without considering the quality of those conversions or their contribution to broader business goals is professionally unacceptable. This fails to leverage the full analytical power of Google Analytics, which can provide insights into user journey, engagement, and post-conversion behavior. Such a narrow focus can lead to optimizing for low-value traffic, ultimately hindering long-term growth and ROI, and misrepresenting the true impact of paid search. An approach that prioritizes increasing click-through rates, CTR, above all else, even if it leads to a higher cost per acquisition, CPA, is also flawed. While CTR is an important metric, it does not guarantee valuable traffic or conversions. Focusing solely on CTR without considering conversion rates or other engagement metrics can lead to inefficient spending and a misallocation of budget, failing to demonstrate the true business value of the paid search investment as intended by GATE principles of effective data utilization. An approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or gut feeling to adjust bids and budgets, rather than data-driven insights from Google Analytics, is professionally unsound. This disregards the core purpose of using analytics tools like Google Analytics, which is to provide objective, data-backed information for decision-making. Such an approach is prone to bias, inefficiency, and ultimately poor performance, failing to meet the standards of data-informed strategy expected in GATE. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a data-driven, objective approach to paid search analysis, leveraging Google Analytics to understand the complete customer journey and campaign impact. This involves setting clear, measurable objectives that go beyond simple cost metrics and using GA to track progress against these objectives. When evaluating paid search performance, professionals should consider a range of metrics that reflect both efficiency and effectiveness, such as CPA, conversion rate, return on ad spend (ROAS), and engagement metrics. The decision-making process should involve regularly reviewing GA data, identifying trends and anomalies, and making informed adjustments to campaign strategies based on these insights. This iterative process ensures that paid search investments are continuously optimized for maximum business impact and align with ethical data interpretation and reporting standards. Question 7. Strategic planning requires a clear understanding of how users are finding a website. When analyzing the effectiveness of different marketing channels and campaigns to inform future investment, which section of the Google Analytics interface would be most crucial to review first? Option A, behavior reports. Option B, acquisition reports. Option C, audience reports. Option D, real-time reports. Correct answer is B, acquisition reports. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an individual to navigate the Google Analytics interface while adhering to the principles of data privacy and responsible data handling, which are implicitly governed by the spirit of the Google Analytics individual qualification. Exams focus on ethical and effective use of the platform. While the exam itself doesn't cite specific regulatory bodies like GDPR or CCPA, it emphasizes understanding how to use Google Analytics in a way that respects user privacy and avoids misinterpretation of data. The challenge lies in selecting the most appropriate interface elements for a given analytical task without compromising data integrity or user trust. The correct approach involves utilizing the acquisition reports to understand how users arrive at a website. This is the most appropriate choice because it directly addresses the strategic planning need to understand traffic sources. These reports provide insights into channels, campaigns, and referring sites, which are fundamental for evaluating marketing effectiveness and optimizing user acquisition strategies. This aligns with the exam's objective of demonstrating a practical understanding of how to derive actionable insights from Google Analytics. An incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the behavior reports. While these reports are valuable for understanding user engagement once they are on the site, they do not directly answer the strategic question of how users are acquired. Relying only on behavior data would lead to an incomplete understanding of the customer journey, missing crucial information about the effectiveness of different acquisition channels. Another incorrect approach would be to exclusively examine the audience reports. These reports provide demographic and interest data about users, which is useful for audience segmentation and understanding who is visiting. However, they do not offer insights into the origin of these users or the effectiveness of the methods used to attract them, thus failing to address the core of strategic acquisition planning. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to solely review the real-time reports. These reports are excellent for monitoring immediate activity on a website, such as tracking live conversions or identifying sudden traffic spikes. However, they offer a snapshot in time and are not designed for historical analysis or strategic planning related to long-term acquisition trends. Their transient nature makes them unsuitable for understanding the broader picture of how users are acquired over time. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves first clearly defining the analytical objective. In this case, the objective is to understand user acquisition. Then, one must systematically consider which sections of the Google Analytics interface are designed to provide data relevant to that objective. The acquisition reports are specifically built for this purpose, making them the most direct and effective choice. Professionals should always prioritize using the tools and reports within Google Analytics that are most aligned with the specific business question being asked, ensuring that the insights derived are accurate and actionable for strategic decision-making. Question 8. Research into the creation of a new marketing performance dashboard for the executive team reveals a potential ethical dilemma. The marketing team wants to showcase the effectiveness of their campaigns by demonstrating which specific user segments are responding best. One proposed method involves creating a dashboard that includes aggregated data, but with the ability to filter by user demographics and behavioral patterns that, while not directly naming individuals, could potentially allow for the identification of smaller, distinct user groups. What is the most ethically responsible and compliant approach to creating this dashboard? Option A. Create a dashboard that displays aggregated campaign performance metrics and overall trend data, ensuring no individual user data or potentially re-identifiable information is presented. Option B. Include unique user identifiers in the dashboard's aggregated data to enable the executive team to track the journey of specific user cohorts. Option C. Share raw, unfiltered Google Analytics data with the executive team, allowing them to build their own reports and identify specific user groups. Option D. Develop a dashboard that allows filtering by detailed demographic and behavioral segments, even if the data is aggregated, to provide granular insights into user responses. The correct answer is A. Create a dashboard that displays aggregated campaign performance metrics and overall trend data, ensuring no individual user data or potentially re-identifiable information is presented. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the desire to provide valuable insights to stakeholders with the ethical obligation to ensure data privacy and compliance with Google Analytics terms of service and relevant data protection regulations. The core dilemma lies in deciding how to present aggregated data in a dashboard without inadvertently revealing personally identifiable information, PI, or violating user privacy expectations. Careful judgment is required to create dashboards that are informative yet responsible. The correct approach involves creating a dashboard that displays aggregated, anonymized data, focusing on trends and overall performance metrics. This approach is ethically sound and compliant because it respects user privacy by not exposing individual user data. It aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, ensuring that the data used serves legitimate business objectives without compromising individual rights. Furthermore, it adheres to Google Analytics terms of service, which prohibit the collection or sharing of PII. By focusing on aggregated metrics, the dashboard provides valuable insights to stakeholders without risking data breaches or regulatory violations. An incorrect approach that involves including user-specific details, even if anonymized with a unique identifier, fails ethically and regulatorily. While the intention might be to allow for deeper drill downs, the presence of unique identifiers, even if not directly linked to PII, can increase the risk of re-identification, especially when combined with other data points. This violates the spirit of data anonymization and can lead to breaches of privacy expectations. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of diligence in protecting user data. Another incorrect approach that involves sharing raw, unfiltered data from Google Analytics with stakeholders, regardless of whether it appears anonymized, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Raw data often contains implicit or explicit PII, and sharing it broadly exposes the organization to severe data protection violations, such as those under GDPR or CCPA, depending on the jurisdiction. Though for this exam, we focus on the principles inherent in Google Analytics framework. This approach disregards the fundamental principles of data security and privacy, creating a high risk of data breaches and legal repercussions. A third incorrect approach that involves creating a dashboard with data that is not clearly defined or sourced, leading to potential misinterpretation by stakeholders, is professionally unsound. While not directly a privacy violation, it erodes trust and can lead to poor decision-making based on inaccurate or misleading information. Ethically, it is a failure to provide accurate and reliable insights. Professionally, it undermines the credibility of the analytics function. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of data privacy principles and the specific terms of service of the analytics platform being used. Before creating any dashboard, one should ask, does this dashboard expose any individual user data or PII? Is the data aggregated and anonymized to a degree that prevents re-identification? Does this dashboard serve a legitimate business purpose without compromising user privacy? If the answer to any of these questions raises concerns, the approach needs to be revised. Prioritizing data privacy and ethical considerations over the desire for granular detail is paramount. Question 9. Market research demonstrates that a company's website is experiencing significant traffic growth. To optimize their digital marketing strategy, the marketing team needs to accurately understand where this traffic is originating from. They are reviewing their Google Analytics data and need to correctly interpret the different traffic sources to allocate their budget effectively. Which of the following approaches best reflects a professional and accurate understanding of traffic source categorization within Google Analytics for strategic decision-making? Option A. Assuming that any traffic arriving from a link on another website is a referral, and that all other non-paid traffic is organic search. Option B. Focusing solely on the total number of website visitors without dissecting the specific sources, as overall growth is the primary indicator of success. Option C. Grouping all traffic that does not originate from a paid advertisement or a direct URL entry into a single unpaid category to simplify reporting. Option D. Differentiating traffic based on whether it comes from unpaid search engine results, direct user input, links on other websites, social media platforms, paid search advertisements, or email campaigns, and analyzing each source's performance independently. The correct answer is C. Grouping all traffic that does not originate from a paid advertisement or a direct URL entry into a single unpaid category to simplify reporting. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital marketing, accurately attributing website traffic to its source to optimize marketing spend and strategy. The professional challenge lies in understanding the nuances of each traffic source and how they are reported in Google Analytics, ensuring that decisions are based on reliable data and adhere to ethical marketing practices. Misinterpreting traffic sources can lead to misallocation of resources, ineffective campaigns, and a failure to meet business objectives. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of how Google Analytics categorizes traffic and the specific characteristics of each source. Organic search traffic, for instance, comes from unpaid listings in search engines. Direct traffic typically represents users who typed a URL directly into their browser or used a bookmark. Referral traffic originates from links on other websites. Social traffic comes from social media platforms. Paid search traffic is generated from paid advertisements on search engines. Email traffic originates from links within email campaigns. Accurately identifying and analyzing these sources allows for informed decisions about where to invest marketing efforts. For example, if organic search is performing well, it might indicate strong SEO efforts. If paid search is driving conversions, it suggests effective ad campaigns. Understanding these distinctions is crucial for optimizing a marketing strategy in line with business goals and ethical reporting standards. An incorrect approach would be to broadly categorize all unpaid traffic as organic, without differentiating between search engines and other sources like direct links from non-search engine websites. This fails to recognize the distinct user intent and acquisition methods for each. Another incorrect approach is to assume all traffic from external websites is referral, without considering if those links are part of paid partnerships or organic mentions, which can skew performance analysis. Misattributing social media traffic as direct traffic is also an error, as it overlooks the significant role of social platforms in driving engagement and discovery. Overlooking the distinct category of paid search traffic and lumping it with organic search would lead to a distorted view of campaign effectiveness and budget allocation. Professionals should approach this by first establishing clear definitions for each traffic source as reported by Google Analytics. They should then regularly review their Google Analytics reports, paying close attention to the source/medium dimension. When anomalies or unexpected patterns emerge, they should investigate further by examining landing pages, campaign parameters, UTAG, and referral paths. This systematic and data-driven approach ensures that marketing strategies are built on accurate insights and ethical reporting, maximizing ROI and fostering trust. Question 10. Comparative studies suggest that different campaign attribution models can significantly impact the perceived value of marketing channels. A company is evaluating its recent digital marketing efforts and needs to decide which attribution model within Google Analytics best reflects the true contribution of each touchpoint to conversions. They have a complex customer journey with multiple interactions across various channels before a conversion occurs. Which of the following approaches is most aligned with best practices for accurate campaign attribution and ethical reporting in this scenario? Option A. Utilize a last-click attribution model, as it is the simplest to understand and directly credits the channel that closed the deal. Option B. Manually assign credit to channels based on the marketing team's intuition about which channels are most influential, regardless of actual conversion path data. Option C. Employ a linear attribution model, assigning equal credit to every touchpoint in the conversion path to ensure no channel is overlooked. Option D. Implement a data-driven attribution model that uses machine learning to analyze conversion paths and assign credit to each touchpoint based on its observed contribution. The correct answer is D. Implement a data-driven attribution model that uses machine learning to analyze conversion paths and assign credit to each touchpoint based on its observed contribution. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital marketing analytics, selecting the most appropriate campaign attribution model to accurately assess the effectiveness of various marketing touchpoints. The professional challenge lies in balancing the desire for granular insight with the practical limitations of data and the potential for misinterpretation, which can lead to suboptimal budget allocation and strategic decisions. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen model aligns with business objectives and provides a fair representation of each channel's contribution. The correct approach involves selecting a data-driven attribution model that considers all touchpoints in the customer journey and assigns credit based on actual user behavior and conversion paths. This method is ethically sound and professionally responsible because it moves beyond simplistic, rule-based models that can unfairly undervalue certain channels. By leveraging algorithms to analyze conversion paths, a data-driven model provides a more objective and nuanced understanding of campaign performance, enabling more informed decisions about where to invest marketing resources. This aligns with the principles of accurate reporting and responsible data utilization, crucial for maintaining client trust and achieving business goals. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on a last-click attribution model. This is ethically problematic and professionally unsound because it disproportionately credits the final touchpoint, ignoring the influence of earlier interactions that may have initiated the customer's journey or nurtured their interest. This can lead to an inaccurate perception of channel effectiveness, potentially starving valuable upstream channels of necessary investment. Another incorrect approach is to arbitrarily assign equal credit to all touchpoints without considering their actual impact or position in the conversion path. This linear model, while seemingly fair, fails to acknowledge that different touchpoints may have varying levels of influence at different stages of the customer journey, leading to a distorted view of performance. Finally, choosing a model based purely on ease of implementation without considering its analytical validity or alignment with business objectives is a failure of professional due diligence. Professionals should approach this decision by first clearly defining the business objectives for campaign measurement. Then, they should evaluate the available data and the capabilities of different attribution models within Google Analytics. The decision should be driven by which model best reflects the complexity of the customer journey and provides the most actionable insights for optimizing marketing spend, rather than by simplicity or a desire for a single, universally correct answer. A data-driven approach, when feasible, offers the most robust and ethically defensible solution. Question 11. Governance review demonstrates that the current data processing and aggregation methods within Google Analytics are leading to significant performance bottlenecks when generating user behavior reports. To optimize this process while maintaining compliance with data privacy principles, which of the following approaches is most appropriate? Option A. Exclude specific user segments from the aggregation process to maintain granular detail for those groups, even if it means processing more individual data points. Option B. Continue aggregating raw, identifiable user data, but strengthen access controls to the raw data repository. Option C. Implement server-side data aggregation that anonymizes or pseudonymizes user identifiers before data is stored and processed for reporting. Option D. Rely on the default Google Analytics aggregation settings without making any changes to the data collection or processing pipeline. The correct answer is C. Implement server-side data aggregation that anonymizes or pseudonymizes user identifiers before data is stored and processed for reporting. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficient data processing and aggregation with the fundamental principles of data privacy and user consent, as mandated by the Google Analytics Individual Qualification Exams Implied Regulatory Framework, which aligns with general data protection principles common in digital analytics. The challenge lies in identifying methods that optimize performance without compromising user trust or violating data handling guidelines. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both technically sound and ethically compliant. The correct approach involves implementing data aggregation techniques that anonymize or pseudonymize user data before it is processed and stored. This aligns with the principle of data minimization and purpose limitation, ensuring that only necessary data is collected and that it is handled in a way that respects user privacy. By aggregating data at a high level, individual user identities are obscured, reducing the risk of re-identification and making the data less sensitive. This method directly supports the ethical and regulatory imperative to protect personal data while still enabling valuable insights for business analysis. An incorrect approach that involves aggregating raw, identifiable user data without proper anonymization or consent mechanisms fails to uphold data privacy standards. This could lead to the collection and processing of personal data in a manner that is not transparent to users and may violate consent requirements. Another incorrect approach, which involves excluding certain user segments from aggregation to maintain granular detail, risks creating a biased dataset and potentially processing more sensitive information than necessary, increasing the risk of privacy breaches. Finally, an approach that relies solely on post-aggregation anonymization without considering the initial data collection and processing stages is insufficient, as the raw data itself may have already been collected or processed in a non-compliant manner. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes privacy by design. This involves understanding the data being collected, the purpose of its aggregation, and the potential risks to user privacy. They should then evaluate aggregation methods based on their ability to minimize personal data exposure, ensure transparency with users, and comply with relevant data protection regulations. Regular audits and reviews of data processing practices are crucial to ensure ongoing compliance and to adapt to evolving privacy landscapes. Question 12. Regulatory review indicates that a company is experiencing challenges in accurately attributing website conversions to specific marketing channels due to increasing user adoption of privacy-enhancing technologies and evolving data privacy regulations. The marketing team needs to understand which acquisition channels are most effective in driving conversions. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements and provides a robust analysis of acquisition performance? Option A. Focusing solely on last-click attribution for all campaigns, disregarding any potential impact of privacy settings on data completeness. Option B. Segmenting acquisition data by channel and campaign, and analyzing conversion paths using an attribution model that accounts for privacy-related data limitations and user consent. Option C. Relying exclusively on first-party cookies to track user journeys across all marketing channels, assuming implicit consent for data collection. Option D, implementing a comprehensive data collection strategy that captures all available user information without explicit consent to maximize the detail of acquisition analysis. The correct answer is B, segmenting acquisition data by channel and campaign, and analyzing conversion paths using an attribution model that accounts for privacy-related data limitations and user consent. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for actionable insights from acquisition data with the imperative to adhere to data privacy regulations. The challenge lies in interpreting user behavior and traffic sources without infringing on individual privacy rights or misrepresenting data due to privacy-enhancing features. Careful judgment is required to select attribution models and reporting methods that are both informative and compliant. The correct approach involves segmenting acquisition data by channel and campaign, and then analyzing conversion paths, using a model that acknowledges the limitations imposed by privacy settings and consent. This approach is right because it directly addresses the core objective of acquisition analysis, understanding how users arrive and convert, while respecting regulatory frameworks that mandate user consent and data minimization. Specifically, by focusing on aggregated, anonymized data, and employing attribution models that account for potential data gaps due to privacy controls, it aligns with the principles of lawful and ethical data processing. This ensures that insights are derived from data that has been collected and processed with appropriate consent, and in a manner that protects individual privacy, thereby avoiding regulatory penalties and maintaining user trust. An incorrect approach that relies solely on first-party cookies without considering consent mechanisms fails to comply with data privacy regulations. This is a regulatory failure because it assumes a level of data collection that may not be permitted without explicit user consent, leading to potential violations of privacy laws. Another incorrect approach that ignores the impact of privacy-enhancing technologies, like ad blockers or browser privacy settings, on data collection will lead to incomplete and potentially misleading acquisition analysis. This is an ethical failure because it presents a skewed view of acquisition performance, which could result in poor strategic decisions based on flawed data. It also fails to acknowledge the reality of user privacy choices. A further incorrect approach that focuses only on last-click attribution without considering the broader customer journey overlooks the complexities of modern user behavior and the impact of various touchpoints. While not a direct regulatory violation in itself, it represents a failure in professional analytical practice by providing an incomplete picture, which can indirectly lead to misallocation of marketing resources and ineffective strategies, thus not fulfilling the duty of providing comprehensive and accurate analysis. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance from the outset. This involves understanding the specific data privacy laws applicable to their operating jurisdiction and the data they are processing. Before conducting any analysis, they should confirm that data collection methods are compliant and that appropriate consent mechanisms are in place. When analyzing acquisition data, they should select attribution models and reporting techniques that are robust enough to provide meaningful insights while acknowledging and accounting for data limitations imposed by privacy regulations and user choices. Regular review of privacy policies and technological changes is crucial to ensure ongoing compliance and analytical integrity. Question 13. Consider a scenario where a company is launching a new website and wants to implement Google Analytics to track user behavior and optimize the user experience. They are aware of the importance of user privacy and are operating in a region with strict data protection laws that require explicit consent for non-essential cookies. Which of the following best describes the most appropriate method for collecting data with Google Analytics in this context? Option A. Disable all Google Analytics tracking to ensure absolute user privacy, even if it means having no data for analysis. Option B. Configure Google Analytics to only collect data after users have explicitly consented to the use of analytics and advertising cookies through a clear and prominent consent banner. Option C. Implement Google Analytics with advanced tracking features enabled by default, assuming users will opt out if they are concerned about their privacy. Option D. Implement Google Analytics using the default settings and assume that all collected data is compliant as long as the website has a privacy policy. Correct answer is D. Implement Google Analytics using the default settings and assume that all collected data is compliant as long as the website has a privacy policy. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires understanding the fundamental mechanisms of data collection in Google Analytics, specifically how user consent and privacy settings interact with the data that can be legally and ethically gathered. The challenge lies in balancing the desire for comprehensive data to inform business decisions with the imperative to respect user privacy and adhere to data protection regulations. Misinterpreting these interactions can lead to the collection of data that is either incomplete, inaccurate, or in violation of privacy laws, resulting in significant reputational damage and potential legal penalties. The correct approach involves configuring Google Analytics to respect user consent choices, particularly regarding cookie usage and data collection for advertising personalization. This aligns with best practices for data privacy and regulatory compliance. By ensuring that data collection is contingent on explicit user consent for specific purposes, e.g., analytics, personalization, an organization demonstrates a commitment to user privacy and adheres to principles like those found in the GDPR or similar privacy frameworks. This approach ensures that the data collected is both legally sound and ethically obtained, providing a reliable foundation for analysis. An incorrect approach would be to assume that all data collected by Google Analytics is automatically compliant with privacy regulations without considering user consent. This overlooks the critical role of user consent in data processing. For instance, collecting data for advertising personalization without explicit consent for that purpose would violate privacy principles and regulations that mandate user opt-in for such activities. Another incorrect approach is to disable all cookies and tracking, which, while prioritizing privacy, can render Google Analytics data insufficient for meaningful analysis and business insights, failing to meet the objective of understanding user behavior effectively. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on default Google Analytics settings without understanding how they interact with regional privacy laws or user preferences, potentially leading to inadvertent noncompliance. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the specific data protection regulations applicable to their target audience, and then configuring Google Analytics to align with those requirements. This involves a proactive assessment of consent management mechanisms, understanding the implications of different data collection settings, and regularly reviewing configurations to ensure ongoing compliance and alignment with evolving privacy landscapes. The goal is to achieve a balance between data utility and user privacy, ensuring that all data collection is transparent, consensual, and legally permissible. Question 14. The assessment process reveals that a marketing manager who has limited technical expertise needs to understand the effectiveness of recent digital marketing campaigns and identify key audience segments engaging with the company website. Which approach to navigating the Google Analytics interface would best equip the analyst to provide the stakeholder with actionable insights? Option A. Solely reviewing the behavior reports to analyze user interactions on specific pages. Option B. Focusing on the audience and acquisition reports to understand user demographics, interests, and traffic sources. Option C. Primarily examining the real-time reports to monitor current website visitor activity. Option D. Presenting a comprehensive dump of raw data from all available Google Analytics sections without interpretation. The correct answer is B. Focusing on the audience and acquisition reports to understand user demographics, interests, and traffic sources. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a data analyst to interpret and present information from Google Analytics to a non-technical stakeholder. The challenge lies in translating complex interface elements and data visualizations into actionable insights that align with the stakeholder's business objectives, while also ensuring the information presented is accurate and ethically sourced within the context of Google Analytics' intended use and data privacy considerations. Misinterpretation or misrepresentation can lead to poor business decisions and erode trust. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging the audience and acquisition reports within Google Analytics. The audience reports provide insights into user demographics, interests, and behavior, which directly inform understanding of who is visiting the website. The acquisition reports detail how users are arriving at the site, identifying the most effective marketing channels. By combining these, the analyst can provide a holistic view of user engagement and traffic sources, directly addressing the stakeholders' need to understand website performance and identify areas for improvement. This approach is ethically sound, as it uses standard, readily available Google Analytics features to provide objective data, adhering to the principles of accurate reporting and data integrity inherent in the Google Analytics individual qualification framework. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves solely focusing on the real-time reports. While useful for monitoring immediate activity, these reports do not provide historical context or trends necessary for strategic decision-making. Relying solely on real-time data would fail to meet the stakeholders' need for a comprehensive understanding of performance over time, and could lead to reactive, rather than proactive, strategies. This is an ethical failure in terms of providing incomplete and potentially misleading information. Another incorrect approach is to only examine the behavior reports without considering the acquisition channels. While behavior reports show what users do on the site, e.g., page views, bounce rates, without understanding where they came from, it's difficult to attribute success or failure to specific marketing efforts. This fragmented view prevents the stakeholder from making informed decisions about resource allocation and campaign optimization, representing a failure in providing actionable insights and fulfilling the analytical purpose of Google Analytics. A third incorrect approach is to present raw, unfiltered data from various sections of Google Analytics without interpretation or context. This overwhelms the stakeholder with technical details they may not understand, failing to translate data into meaningful business insights. It also risks misinterpretation by the stakeholder, leading to incorrect conclusions. This approach demonstrates a lack of professional judgment in communicating complex information effectively and ethically. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this situation by first understanding the stakeholder's specific business questions and objectives. Then, they should identify the relevant Google Analytics reports and features that can provide the necessary data. The data should be analyzed, interpreted, and synthesized into clear, concise, and actionable insights. Communication should be tailored to the stakeholder's technical understanding, using visualizations and plain language. This process ensures that the information provided is accurate, relevant, and ethically presented, aligning with the principles of data analysis and professional responsibility. Question 15. The investigation demonstrates that a company has multiple distinct websites and mobile applications, each with unique user bases and data collection requirements. The current Google Analytics setup uses a single property to track all these digital assets, with a single, unfiltered view capturing all data. Which of the following account, property, and view structures would best align with regulatory principles of data minimization and purpose limitation? Option A. Create a separate property for each distinct website and mobile application, and within each property, establish views that filter data based on specific reporting needs or to exclude sensitive information. Option B. Maintain a single property for all digital assets and use a single, unfiltered view to capture all raw data for potential future analysis. Option C. Consolidate all digital assets under a single property and create multiple views to segment data by marketing campaign, regardless of the source website or application. Option D. Create a single property for all digital assets and establish views that are primarily for aesthetic segmentation without any data filtering or exclusion of sensitive information. The correct answer is A. Create a separate property for each distinct website and mobile application, and within each property, establish views that filter data based on specific reporting needs or to exclude sensitive information. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in digital analytics implementation, where the structure of accounts, properties, and views can have significant implications for data privacy, access control, and reporting accuracy. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for granular data analysis with the imperative to comply with data protection regulations, particularly concerning user consent and data minimization. Misconfigurations can lead to inadvertent data collection or exposure, necessitating careful judgment in structuring the analytics environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves establishing a clear, hierarchical structure that segregates data based on distinct business units or geographical regions, and then further refines access and reporting through views. This approach ensures that data collection and processing are aligned with defined business purposes and user consent. Specifically, creating separate properties for distinct websites or applications allows for independent tracking and configuration. Within each property, using views to filter data for specific reporting needs, e.g., by region, by campaign type, or to exclude sensitive information, e.g., personally identifiable information, is crucial for maintaining data integrity and privacy. This aligns with principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are fundamental to data protection regulations. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that consolidates all websites and applications under a single property without considering distinct data collection needs or privacy requirements fails to adhere to data minimization principles. This can lead to overcollection of data and make it difficult to manage consent and access granularly. Another incorrect approach is to create numerous views within a single property that indiscriminately include all collected data without any filtering or exclusion of sensitive information. This increases the risk of accidental exposure of personally identifiable information and complicates compliance with data access requests. Finally, an approach that prioritizes a flat, unorganized structure with minimal use of properties or views, or one that uses views solely for arbitrary segmentation without a clear business or privacy rationale, demonstrates a lack of understanding of best practices for data governance and regulatory compliance. This can result in data that is difficult to interpret, manage, and secure, potentially leading to breaches of privacy and regulatory penalties. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the business objectives and the types of data being collected. This should be followed by an assessment of relevant data protection regulations and user privacy expectations. The account, property, and view structure should then be designed to support these objectives and comply with regulations, prioritizing data segregation, access control, and data minimization. Regular audits of the structure and data collection practices are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 16. The analysis reveals that the marketing team is reviewing website traffic data to identify the most effective channels for driving customer acquisition. They are considering which traffic sources are truly contributing to business success. Which of the following approaches best aligns with identifying high-performing traffic sources for strategic investment? Option A. Evaluating traffic sources by their contribution to key performance indicators such as conversion rates, revenue generated, and goal completion rates, in conjunction with traffic volume. Option B. Prioritizing traffic sources based on the total number of sessions and users they generate, assuming higher volume equates to better performance. Option C. Focusing on traffic sources that are well-known brands or have a strong social media presence, regardless of their direct impact on website goals. Option D. Analyzing traffic sources primarily by their bounce rate, aiming to reduce it across all channels to indicate improved user engagement. The correct answer is B. Prioritizing traffic sources based on the total number of sessions and users they generate, assuming higher volume equates to better performance. Explanation. The analysis reveals a common challenge for marketing professionals, interpreting website traffic data to identify genuinely high-performing sources. The difficulty lies in distinguishing between sources that drive volume and those that contribute to meaningful business objectives, such as conversions or engagement. This requires a nuanced understanding of Google Analytics metrics and their alignment with business goals, rather than a superficial glance at raw traffic numbers. Professionals must exercise careful judgment to avoid misallocating resources based on misleading data. The correct approach involves segmenting traffic sources by their contribution to key performance indicators, KPI, that directly align with business objectives. This means looking beyond simple session counts to analyze metrics like conversion rates, revenue generated, or goal completions attributed to each source. For example, a source driving a high volume of traffic, but with a low conversion rate, might be less valuable than a source with lower traffic but a significantly higher conversion rate. This approach is ethically sound and professionally responsible, as it prioritizes data-driven decision-making that supports business growth and efficient resource allocation, aligning with the principles of responsible data utilization and performance measurement. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the number of users or sessions from each traffic source. This fails to account for the quality of that traffic. A source might appear high-performing based on volume alone, but if those users are not engaging with the site or converting, the source is not truly contributing to business success. This can lead to misinformed decisions, such as increasing investment in a low-performing channel, which is professionally unsound, and a poor use of company resources. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize traffic sources based on their perceived popularity or brand association, without validating this perception with actual performance data. This relies on subjective judgment rather than objective analytics, leading to potentially biased and ineffective marketing strategies. It ignores the core purpose of analytics, which is to provide objective insights for improvement. A third incorrect approach is to focus exclusively on metrics that are easily accessible but may not be directly tied to business outcomes, such as bounce rate in isolation. While bounce rate can be an indicator of user engagement, a high bounce rate from a specific source might be acceptable if that source is primarily used for brand awareness campaigns, where immediate conversion is not the primary goal. Focusing solely on this metric, without considering the broader context of business objectives, can lead to misinterpretations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the business's overarching goals. Before diving into analytics, professionals should define what high-performing truly means in the context of those goals. This involves identifying the key metrics that demonstrate success. Subsequently, they should leverage Google Analytics to segment traffic sources by these defined KPIs, allowing for an objective comparison of their true impact. Regular review and adjustment of strategies based on this data-informed understanding are crucial for continuous improvement and responsible marketing practices. Question 17. Market research demonstrates that a company's website traffic has increased significantly across several channels in the last quarter. A key stakeholder, responsible for marketing budget allocation, has requested a performance review of these traffic sources to determine where to increase or decrease investment. Which of the following approaches best addresses this stakeholder's need while adhering to the principles of responsible data analysis within the Google Analytics individual qualification framework? Option A. Focusing on the bounce rate for each traffic source, recommending that investment be shifted away from any source with a bounce rate above 50%, regardless of its contribution to other business goals. Option B. Analyzing each traffic source's contribution to key business objectives, such as conversion rates and revenue generated, and providing a comparative performance analysis that considers efficiency metrics like cost per acquisition to inform strategic investment decisions. Option C. Providing a summary of the top 5 traffic sources based on click-through rates from recent advertising campaigns, suggesting that these are the most effective channels for driving engagement. Option D. Presenting a detailed breakdown of total sessions and unique users for each traffic source, highlighting those with the highest volume, and recommending increased investment in those channels due to their apparent popularity. The correct answer is D. Presenting a detailed breakdown of total sessions and unique users for each traffic source, highlighting those with the highest volume, and recommending increased investment in those channels due to their apparent popularity. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge for digital marketing professionals, interpreting complex data to inform strategic decisions for stakeholders. The challenge lies in translating raw traffic source performance metrics into actionable insights that align with business objectives and adhere to ethical data handling practices. Stakeholders, often with varying levels of technical understanding, rely on clear, accurate, and relevant information to allocate budgets and refine marketing strategies. The pressure to demonstrate ROI and justify marketing spend necessitates a rigorous and compliant approach to data analysis. The correct approach involves a nuanced understanding of how different traffic sources contribute to overall business goals, such as conversions or lead generation, and presenting this information in a way that is both insightful and actionable for stakeholders. This requires going beyond surface-level metrics to understand the quality of traffic and its impact on key performance indicators. Regulatory compliance in this context, particularly within the framework of the Google Analytics individual qualification, emphasizes responsible data interpretation and reporting that avoids misleading conclusions. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on volume metrics like total sessions or users, without considering conversion rates or cost per acquisition. This fails to provide a holistic view of performance and can lead to misallocation of resources towards channels that appear high traffic but are not effectively driving business outcomes. Another incorrect approach is to present data without context or clear explanations, leaving stakeholders to draw their own potentially inaccurate conclusions. This abdicates the responsibility of providing expert analysis and can undermine trust. Furthermore, any approach that involves misrepresenting data, even unintentionally, or failing to acknowledge limitations in the data or analysis, would be ethically and professionally unsound. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes understanding the stakeholders' objectives, selecting relevant metrics that directly address those objectives, performing a deep analysis of traffic source performance in relation to those objectives, and then communicating the findings clearly and transparently, highlighting both successes and areas for improvement, while adhering to all relevant data privacy and reporting guidelines. Question 18. To address the challenge of balancing detailed website analytics with user privacy, which of the following approaches best aligns with privacy, best practices, and regulatory expectations for data anonymization? Option A. Collect detailed user data, including direct identifiers, and delete all collected data after a maximum of 30 days to ensure privacy. Option B. Configure Google Analytics to collect the maximum amount of user data possible for in-depth analysis, assuming that the platform's default settings are sufficient for privacy compliance. Option C. Rely solely on obtaining explicit user consent for all data collection through Google Analytics, without implementing specific technical anonymization measures. Option D. Implement IP address masking and user ID randomization within Google Analytics, and aggregate data to a level that prevents individual user identification, while also clearly informing users about data collection in the privacy policy. Correct answer is D. Implement IP address masking and user ID randomization within Google Analytics, and aggregate data to a level that prevents individual user identification, while also clearly informing users about data collection in the privacy policy. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge for digital marketers and data analysts, balancing the need for granular user insights with the imperative to protect individual privacy. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying privacy regulations, specifically those relevant to data collection and processing for analytics purposes, without compromising the effectiveness of marketing strategies. This requires a nuanced understanding of what constitutes personally identifiable information, PI, and the appropriate methods for anonymizing data to mitigate privacy risks. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance while still enabling data-driven decision-making. The correct approach involves implementing robust data anonymization techniques that render individual users unidentifiable, thereby aligning with privacy principles and regulatory requirements. This typically includes techniques like IP address masking, user ID randomization, and data aggregation to a level where individual identification is no longer feasible. This approach is right because it directly addresses the core of privacy concerns by removing or obscuring direct and indirect identifiers. For example, masking IP addresses, e.g., by removing the last octet, prevents the tracking of specific user devices, and randomizing user ID ensures that historical data cannot be linked back to a specific individual over time. This proactive stance on data minimization and anonymization is a cornerstone of privacy-conscious data handling and is often a direct requirement or strong recommendation under various data protection frameworks, such as the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. If the users are in the EU, or similar principles in other jurisdictions that emphasize the protection of personal data. An approach that relies solely on obtaining consent without implementing technical anonymization measures is insufficient. While consent is a crucial element of data processing, it does not absolve the responsibility to minimize data collection and anonymize where possible. If PII is collected and stored without adequate anonymization, even with consent, there remains a risk of data breaches exposing sensitive information, and the processing might still be deemed excessive or non-compliant with data minimization principles. Another incorrect approach is to assume that simply deleting data after a short period automatically ensures privacy. While data retention policies are important, the period of retention matters, and the data collected during that period may still contain PII. Furthermore, if the data is not anonymized during its collection and storage, Even short-term retention poses a privacy risk. Finally, an approach that focuses only on the technical aspects of Google Analytics configuration, without considering the broader implications of data collection and user privacy, is also flawed. Google Analytics itself offers privacy controls, but the ultimate responsibility for compliant data handling rests with the organization implementing the tool. Ignoring the ethical and legal dimensions of data collection and processing, and solely focusing on tool features, can lead to significant privacy violations. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes privacy by design and by default. This involves understanding the specific data protection regulations applicable to their user base, conducting a thorough data privacy impact assessment, implementing technical and organizational measures to anonymize data at the earliest possible stage, and ensuring transparency with users about data collection and processing practices. Regular review of privacy policies and analytics configurations is essential to maintain compliance and build user trust. Question 19. The review process indicates that an analyst is preparing a report on website performance and is considering applying a filter to exclude all traffic originating from social media platforms to focus solely on organic search and direct traffic. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of accurate data analysis and reporting as emphasized in the Google Analytics individual qualification? Option A. Apply the filter to exclude all traffic originating from social media platforms, but only for the last 7 days, to see recent trends in other channels. Option B. Apply the filter to exclude all social media traffic to isolate the performance of organic search in direct channels. Option C. Apply the filter to exclude all traffic that does not originate from organic search or direct channels, effectively isolating only those two sources. Option D. Apply the filter to exclude all traffic originating from social media platforms, and also exclude any traffic that has visited the site more than once, to focus on new user acquisition. The correct answer is B. Apply the filter to exclude all social media traffic to isolate the performance of organic search and direct channels. Explanation. The review process indicates a potential misinterpretation of how to apply filtering and segmentation in Google Analytics, which can lead to inaccurate reporting and flawed strategic decisions. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of data integrity and its implications for business strategy, all within the context of adhering to the principles of data analysis as taught in the Google Analytics Individual Qualification (GAIQ) curriculum. The GAIQ emphasizes accurate data interpretation and responsible use of analytics tools. The correct approach involves using filters and segments to isolate specific user groups or traffic sources for deeper analysis, ensuring that the data presented is relevant and representative of the question being asked. This aligns with the GAIQ focus on understanding user behavior and campaign performance through precise data examination. For instance, segmenting by device type to understand mobile user experience, or filtering out internal traffic to get a true picture of external engagement are standard, best practice applications taught in the GAIQ. This ensures that reports reflect genuine user interactions and marketing effectiveness, preventing misallocation of resources or incorrect conclusions about campaign success. An incorrect approach would be to apply filters or segments in a way that distorts the overall data or excludes critical information without a clear analytical purpose. For example, broadly excluding all traffic from a specific geographic region without a valid business reason for that exclusion would lead to an incomplete and potentially misleading view of website performance. This fails to meet the GAIQ objective of providing a comprehensive understanding of user journeys. Another incorrect approach is to apply filters that are overly restrictive, such as excluding all traffic that doesn't convert, as this would eliminate valuable data on user engagement and awareness stages of the customer lifecycle, hindering a holistic analysis. This also contradicts the GAIQ emphasis on analyzing the entire user path. Professionals should approach data analysis by first clearly defining the analytical objective. What specific question are they trying to answer? Then, they should select the appropriate filtering and segmentation techniques that directly address that objective without introducing bias or omitting crucial context. This involves understanding the capabilities of Google Analytics and how different filters and segments impact the data. The decision-making process should prioritize data accuracy, relevance, and the ability to derive actionable insights that are ethically sound and aligned with the principles of responsible data analysis as outlined in the GATE. Question 20. What factors determine the ethical and professional approach to reporting Google Analytics data to a client, particularly when certain metrics show significant positive trends while others indicate underperformance? Option A. The analyst's personal preference for reporting on metrics that are easiest to explain, regardless of their direct impact on the client's business goals. Option B. The focus on showcasing the most visually appealing charts and graphs, even if they do not represent the most critical performance indicators for the client's business. Option C. The client's stated business objectives, the accuracy and completeness of the data, and the need to provide a balanced and contextualized overview of performance, including both successes and areas for improvement. Option D. The extent to which positive trends can be highlighted to impress the client, while downplaying or omitting underperforming metrics to maintain a positive perception. The correct answer is D. The extent to which positive trends can be highlighted to impress the client, while downplaying or omitting underperforming metrics to maintain a positive perception. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the desire to demonstrate the value of Google Analytics to a client with the ethical obligation to accurately represent data and avoid misleading interpretations. The temptation to highlight only positive trends, even if they are not the most significant or representative, can lead to a skewed perception of performance. Careful judgment is required to ensure that reporting is both informative and ethically sound, adhering to professional standards of transparency and accuracy. The correct approach involves presenting a comprehensive overview of key performance indicators, KPI, that reflect the client's stated business objectives, including both positive and negative trends, and providing context for these trends. This approach is ethically justified because it promotes transparency and allows the client to make informed decisions based on a realistic understanding of their digital marketing performance. It aligns with the principles of professional integrity and responsible data analysis, ensuring that the client receives an unbiased assessment. An incorrect approach would be to selectively present only the most favorable metrics, ignoring or downplaying underperforming areas. This is ethically problematic as it misrepresents the overall performance and can lead the client to make strategic decisions based on incomplete or misleading information. It violates the principle of honesty and can erode trust between the analyst and the client. Another incorrect approach would be to focus on vanity metrics that do not directly contribute to the client's business goals, even if they appear impressive in isolation. This is professionally unsound because it fails to provide actionable insights and distracts from the core objectives of the analysis. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the client's business and a failure to deliver meaningful value. A third incorrect approach would be to present raw, uninterpreted data without any context or explanation. While technically accurate, this fails to meet the professional obligation to provide analysis and insights. It leaves the client to decipher the meaning of the data, which is the analyst's core responsibility, and can be perceived as a lack of effort or expertise. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the client's objectives, a commitment to data integrity, and a focus on providing actionable insights. Analysts should prioritize transparency, accuracy, and relevance in their reporting, always considering the ethical implications of their presentation. This involves asking, what does this data truly tell us about the client's performance against their goals? And how can I present this information in a way that is both honest and helpful for decision-making?